Hey guys, what's up? It's 8-Bit Eric, and a while back we had a Nindies showcase presentation. It showed a lot of indie games that were coming over to the Nintendo Switch. Some not so great, some like, okay, I could get behind that, and some that were like, holy crap, I totally have to play this SAAP. And Katana Zero was one of those games that made me go, holy crap, I totally had to play this ASAP. It looked like it had all the makings for a game of my choice. Action, violence, samurais, 80s synthesizers. Roll it all up into a ball, and that looks like it's something that 8-Bit Eric could take a bite out of. So for today's video, we're going to take a close look at Katana Zero and find out, is it worth buying? So if you're new to the channel, go ahead, feel free to throw a subscription and sit back, relax, and let's begin today's video, guys. So Katana Zero, it's a action 16-bit, 8-bit retro Neo style video game that has you playing as a samurai, and your character is working for like a secret organization that puts hits out on people in exchange, not for money, but for drugs. Yeah, your character has a drug addiction to a thing called Crone. It's a thing that gives him power-ups, and the power-up is to manipulate time or kind of like premeditate your steps and everything, which is what makes him so deadly. Yeah, the premise of the game is each level has multiple screens filled with enemies, booby traps, and all sorts of different obstacles that you have to avoid. Now, your character, yeah, he's a badass samurai. He can slice and dice people left and right, you know, chop their heads off at the speed of sound. But he's kind of a little wimp. One hit, boom, you gotta start all over. So the main thing, the main gameplay mechanic is this idea of using your Crone to manipulate time. So if you hold the trigger button, it slows down time slow enough to where you won't be detected. You can even do a ZR to somersault, and you're temporarily invisible or invincible to bullets and lasers, or lasers as Dr. Evil says, and then you can slice and dice, and voila, you beat the obstacles. And yeah, it's kind of like, I would say a little bit like Slime Son and Super Meat Boy in the regard of everything could kill you with one hit. There's lasers, there's difficult jumps, decent platforming, and the concept of time manipulation is unique, and it's really cool. Combine that with some 80s synthwave, you know, some indie music that is inspired by retro hits and stuff. It's actually pretty cool. It has a lot of good atmosphere and everything, and the 8-bit, 16-bit quasi style of this game fits really well. They really brought it. This feels like a really top-notch indie game, and the control is actually pretty spot on as well. Controlling your samurai is real fluid. It's simple. Wall jumping, you can do all sorts of stuff. Wall jump, you can grab items like vases and, you know, cleavers and axes and stuff, throw them at your enemies. You could plan out your method of attack. You could drop down from the ceiling. You can bust through doors. So there's a lot of stuff that you could do as the badass samurai. Now, there is a little bit of a story. As I mentioned, you're working for a shadow organization that gives you hits that you go in exchange for drugs. There's a little bit of a narrative involving a villain who's kind of like inspired by you, and then also a little girl that's your neighbor. There's a lot of dark stuff in here, actually. A lot of violence, a lot of pixelated blood. So it might not be for younger audiences, to be quite honest. There's a lot of cuss words, but if you're watching this channel, you're used to cuss words, because I cuss a fucking lot. And there's a lot of drug references, and you know, it's pretty much for mature audiences. You know, it might have that 8-bit retro style aesthetic, but this one is actually really oriented towards mature levels. So just a fair warning on that. And I think that actually is what actually brought my attention to it, is it just looks so amazingly violent. I mean, chopping off people's heads, even your own deaths are pretty badass. Getting hit by a laser, chopping off heads, throwing axes at people, just, you know, destroying people left and right has never been so much satisfying. You know, being able to go through a level successfully without dying is such a great feeling. However, it's pretty much a guarantee that you are going to die in this level. And this game also employs some cool effects that it's like a surveillance camera, like a VHS. There's a lot of like, you know, that warped stuff when a VHS tape starts playing or when a camera rewinds. You're actually seeing the game through the future. Your character, the samurai, is thinking what he's going to do to get through a room. Like when you're playing through it, it's kind of hard to explain, but when you're moving through the level, that's the samurai premeditating his moves. And if you successfully do it, it says, I think that will do. And then it plays out on the surveillance footage. It turns into like black and white and you're watching it in real time, if that makes any sense. So there's a lot of like special effects to make it look like it's a camera and surveillance footage and rewind and stuff like that. Thankfully, there's a warning at the beginning of the game in case you have epilepsy that you're able to turn off some of these special effects and everything. But it did add to the charm. It did make it stand out a bit, even though every time you die, it does like that rewind effect, and it's kind of a little annoying, but it did give a good presentation. It did make this game stand out as something unique, because other than that, it would have just been another like Super Meat Boy type of game. If there wasn't the blood, the gratuitous violence, the cussing, and the 80s aesthetic of it with the special effects, this game wouldn't have stood out. So I do appreciate everything that the developers did to make Katana Zero look like such a badass game and feel like such one. This game was incredibly satisfying to play through. Every time you successfully made it to the end of a level, it was like, oh my god, that was a tricky one. And there's all sorts of different ways to get past stages. Remember, you do have to clear out all the enemies on the screen. So sometimes you can even use your environment to like make a smoke screen to not get detected. Sometimes you can hide behind crowds like in the nightclub and stuff. So I believe there's about 10 levels in this game. It goes into a deeper narrative and a deeper plot. Goes back into the past and flashbacks a lot to your main character. Don't want to spoil much, but it's actually a really solid story that gets a little bit more darker and emotional than I actually thought would. So there's a huge amount of depth to this game. Unfortunately, with that said, playtime is not that long. It's about 10 hours or so, 8-10 hours to play through. However, it was an amazing playthrough. This is a example of an indie game that came out of nowhere and deserves to get a lot more recognition than it's getting. Katana Zero may not have too many bells and whistles, but it has just enough bells and whistles. This game will grab your attention easily within the first couple minutes. The tutorial teaches you everything you need to know. The rest is whether you are good or not. And again, like I mentioned, there's a lot of trial and error when it comes to games of this nature. There's going to be a lot of dying, getting frustrated, possibly rage quitting, maybe pausing the button and going and grabbing a cigarette real quick, because it is quite challenging, and it's not in a cheap way. Nothing about this game screams cheap deaths or difficulty that makes up for poor level design, because the levels are actually rather neat as well. So this is overall an excellent package of a video game. This is an indie game that had just the right amount of je ne sais quoi put behind it, and as Eric Cartman would say, it's very sweet to play. Gosh, I cannot get enough of Katana Zero. Within minutes of playing it, I knew I made the right choice of picking it up, and I knew I had to make a video telling you guys how much it is. So that's why I'm literally sucking it off in a video. It's sad that it is only available digitally right now, unfortunately, but I can predict that within the next year or so, probably even the next few months, we are going to actually see this game be put out either through limited run or super rare games or special reserve or strictly limited. One of these game companies will be putting this on a physical disc because it is that damn good. I think on the 8-bit Eric game grading scale, the 8BE GGS, I would give Katana Zero a solid 9 out of 10. Now, bear with me. I think this is a must-own experience for the Nintendo Switch. It's good enough of a price. It's not overly expensive. It has just enough content to sit down and really sink your teeth into. Has a good presentation, good fluidity with the controls and everything.
Guys,
it's all around
on the next
great
video,
package,
have a great
example
day.
of
Peace
an
out.
indie game done right on a console. Any console. This could be on anything, and I would still say it is a must-own. But I have a Switch. I like to play stuff on the Switch. I got Katana Zero on the Switch, and I think you guys should as well. And guys, that's it for the review. Thanks a lot for watching. As always, if you've played Katana Zero, feel free to chime in down below in the comments. Remember, subscribe if you haven't already, and don't forget to engage. And I will see you guys on the next video. Have a great day. Peace out.